29th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with President Yoon Suk-yeol's policy briefing and press conference. The South Korean leader is set to address the nation on the government's goals and progress in key reform policies, including pension, labor, health, education, and birth rate. He's also having a Q&A session with Korean and foreign media with no limitations on topics. The Palestinian Health Ministry says at least 10 Palestinians have been killed in a major operation by Israeli forces in the north of the occupied West Bank. The UN Food Agency is halting Gaza-style movements in the Gaza Strip after its team came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint. Paris is once again bustling with the 2024 Paralympics and now in full swing. About 4,400 athletes from a record 168 delegations will be chasing gold in 22 Paralympic sports. President Yoon is set to deliver a policy briefing and press conference in the coming hour to highlight his administration's major policy tasks. He will address the nation, focusing on the government's goals and progress and reforming the public pension system, the labor environment, the medical sector, and education, as well as improving the nation's chronically low birth rate. Now, in particular, Yoon is expected to lay out the direction of the government's pension reform plan, as the current National Pension Fund is projected to run out by the year 2055. The officials said the president's speech will touch upon themes including people's livelihoods, public safety, reform, and communication. This will be followed by a news conference with Korean and foreign media. Stay tuned for our live coverage at 10 a.m. Korea time. With more victims of digital crimes using deepfake images turning out to be young students in school, the Education Ministry has rolled up its sleeves, warning that student offenders could even be expelled for committing crimes against fellow students. Our Song Yujin has more.
Regarding the recent increase in digital sex crimes using sexually explicit deepfake images, South Korea's Education Ministry warned that student offenders committing crimes against fellow students in school will face high levels of disciplinary action, including expulsion. Mr. Kim Do-hyung, who leads the ministry's school violence response team at a related briefing on Wednesday, added that such crimes are highly likely to be very intentional and damaging. In addition to expulsion, other possible disciplinary actions include mandatory voluntary hours, special education or counseling, and school transfers. The type of actions against offenders will depend on factors such as the severity of damage, as well as the duration and the intentionality of the offense. Referring to recent deepfake abuse cases where many offenders were found to be law-breaching minors without criminal responsibility, he said this will also be an opportunity to discuss such matters. Law-breaching minors are teens from ages 10 to 14 subject to protective disposition instead of criminal penalty. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the police began 7 days of special control and investigation into deepfake sex crimes. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Now, over in Parliament, in what is the first bipartisan accord of the current National Assembly, lawmakers on Wednesday approved an array of bills to improve people's daily lives. Our correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
On Wednesday, the 22nd National Assembly representatives were hard at work, hammering out 28 pieces of legislation that will impact many aspects of people's lives, tackling pending issues in real estate, energy, medical service, and more. In a rare show of consensus, all 295 lawmakers present at the plenary session voted to provide greater support for the victims of real estate rental scams. A revision to an existing act, this will guarantee the victims up to 20 years of residence in the property they rented. Another proposal restricting the rights of parents to inherit their deceased sons or daughters' money and assets when they do not sufficiently carry out their parental duties passed with strong support. The so-called Kuhara bill is named after the late K-pop star, whose mother and brother disputed over who would inherit the singer's money after her death. And perhaps the most fiercely debated, the revision to the current Nursing Act, which was tabled after a last-minute agreement in a late-night meeting of the Health and Welfare Committee. The rival lawmakers met halfway just hours before the plenary session and agreed to provide the legal basis for further medical practice by nurses who qualify to act as physician assistants.
This defines the additional roles of nurses with qualifying professional, clinical, and educational experience in providing medical service under a doctor's general guidance or delegation.
The Nursing Act aims to protect them so they can put all their attention and focus on providing medical care to patients and thereby ultimately protect the lives and health of the people.
This comes at an especially critical time as South Korea deals with a shortage of medical personnel at major hospitals after many doctors resigned in protest of medical school enrollment expansion, and just a day before the nurses planned protests calling for better working conditions. A goal since the previous assembly, the revision passed with 283 lawmakers voting for, 2 against, and 5 abstaining in an unprecedented bipartisan move toward a coalition by the current assembly.
But tensions still linger as the rival lawmakers prepare to discuss potential agendas for the much-anticipated meeting between their party leaders, PPP's Han and DP's Lee, which is expected in weeks. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Israel continues its offensive in the occupied West Bank, with a larger-scale raids and airstrikes being carried out on Wednesday. The UN Food Agency is also halting Gaza staff movement in the Gaza Strip after its team came under fire near an Israeli checkpoint. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With Israel continuing its offensives in Gaza, its military is also expanding attacks in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli military on Wednesday carried out raids and airstrikes in northern regions of the West Bank, killing at least 10 Palestinians. The Israel Defense Forces said that it was part of a counter-terror operation, combining the use of drones and bulldozers, but also military and security forces. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz said the latest operation aims to thwart Islamic Iranian terrorist infrastructure, adding that Tehran was looking to form an eastern front against Israel. He added that threats in the West Bank must be dealt with in the same way as in Gaza. An IDF spokesperson said Wednesday that Israel had identified the smuggling of weapons and explosives into the region by Iran. Meanwhile, the humanitarian situation in Gaza may further worsen as the World Food Program announced it will be halting all aid movement in the enclave. This comes as one of its vehicles was hit with repeated gunfire close to an Israeli checkpoint. The agency said that despite the vehicle being clearly marked and having received multiple clearances by Israeli authorities to approach the checkpoint, the vehicle was fired at repeatedly. None of the passengers were harmed, but an image released by the WFP showed that at least 10 bullets hit the vehicle. The agency has been crucial in its distribution of food throughout Gaza, as famine has been widespread for months. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported Wednesday that the Israeli military bombed a car passing through a Syrian border checkpoint near the Lebanese border, killing 4 people. The Civil War Monitoring Group said a car exploded in a drone attack and that 3 Palestinians and 1 Lebanese national were killed. However, according to a Reuters report citing a local security source, the 3 Palestinians were members of the Islamic Jihad, while the Lebanese national was a member of Hezbollah. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he's charting a plan to end the war with Russia. Now, what kind of deal could such a plan include, and how realizable will that be? Joining us for more is Professor Robert English. Good afternoon to you, Professor English.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. According to Zelenskyy on Tuesday, Ukraine's incursion into Russia's specific Kursk region was all a part of Kyiv's victory plan. What does he mean by that victory plan?
What I think he means is that he wants to convince his Western backers that Ukraine still can achieve victory. So it's part of a persuasion, a public relations naming. Unfortunately, I think most analysts don't think that's credible anymore, and that some kind of negotiated settlement is approaching soon. And the Ukrainians are pushing hard, to hang on as long as they can and try to keep that Western support flowing and fend off pressure to strike a deal with Russia.
Well, what Zelenskyy is planning to do is that he's going to propose a peace plan to the U.S. next month to, technically end the war with Russia. Professor English, what do you think will be included in Ukraine's peace plan this time?
I don't think Zelenskyy himself even knows yet. It depends on how the battle progresses. Ukraine scored an impressive tactical victory by grabbing this huge swath of territory, right? 1,000 square kilometers in a very short time. But then they bogged down, and questions have been raised about how long they can hold that territory as Russia methodically begins pushing back. Well, meanwhile, in central Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, they continue to lose territory. So the longer this goes on, the weaker Ukraine's hand becomes. And of course, Zelenskyy was hoping for a better outcome to give him, a better bargaining position. He has improved his hand a little bit with this surprise invasion of Russia. But remember, Ukraine holds less than 0.5% of Russian territory, while Russia holds over 20% of Ukraine. So what kind of bargaining chip can that be?
It looks like he is really betting on the progress of the war. Now, then I have to ask you, why is he planning to propose the deal to, U.S. President Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris? Is it because he's trying to pressure the U.S.?
Of course, he's trying to pressure, to convince, to maintain support. I think it's actually a clever move to appeal to all American leaders, both former President Trump, current President Biden, and perhaps future President Harris. That makes it more of a bipartisan issue. It makes it harder for Trump or Harris or Biden to break away and criticize the others. So I think for Zelenskyy, this is important. And what he's signaling is that even if Trump wins, he expects continuity. Trump will be pushed to confirm that we still support Ukraine. If it's going to be Kamala Harris, Biden's successor, the same thing. He's trying to sort of lock in a continued position of America supporting Ukraine with this sort of diplomatic tactic. It's actually quite clever, I think.
Well, at the same time, Ukraine is reportedly looking to invite Russia to its second peace summit that is set to be held in November. Why is Ukraine inviting Russia this time? It didn't last time, the first time.
Yeah, well, again, these previous conferences, as you mentioned, the last time Russia wasn't there. And because Russia wasn't there, neither was China and other major players. So it became a very one-sided peace conference. It was really just a talking show and not a serious peace conference. Of course, ultimately, if you're having a conference, if you're having negotiations between two adversaries, then both adversaries have to be there.
Right.
So maybe it's a sign that we're reaching the point of a real negotiation, that the Ukrainians have agreed to something they have refused to do before, which is sit down with the aggressor, Vladimir Putin.
In the meantime, Ukraine also staged its first test of a domestically made ballistic missile. Now, no details are yet to be revealed. But how threatening is this? I mean, why is Zelenskyy making this progress public?
Yeah, well, every little thing that can show strength, more military support, new military innovation can't hurt Ukraine's image. But I don't think anyone expects this is some killer weapon or game-changing military system. Ukraine has had missile technology. Ukraine was an important center of rocket motor production in the old Soviet days. And they have produced other missiles and drones and military systems before. So this is one more, but there's no intelligence suggesting that it's something game-changing that Russia will be afraid of.
Alrighty, Professor English, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a wonderful afternoon there.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
South Korea's birth rate bucked recent trends, growing for the first time in nearly 9 years, with the number of marriages also seeing record growths. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Some positive news regarding the country's population crisis, as the number of marriages and births surged in the second quarter of 2024. Data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday showed that the total number of births between April and June this year came to just under 57,000, an increase of 1.2% compared to the same period last year. It's the first time since the fourth quarter of 2015 that the number of births in South Korea has grown year on year by quarter. The number of births in June recorded an all-time low for the month of June, but the number of births in April and May saw a rise, which is what led to the overall increase for the second quarter. There were also more marriages in the same period this year, with just under 56,000 between April and June, which is an increase of more than 17% compared to the second quarter of 2023. This is the largest year-on-year jump in the number of marriages for any quarter. A spokesperson from Statistics Korea attributed the surge in the number of births and marriages to not only a backlog caused by COVID-19 restrictions, which meant weddings were delayed, but also to various efforts from the Yoon administration to tackle the population crisis with benefits for married couples. One expert says that another big factor behind the rising number of marriages could be the current demographic.
There were a lot of births around 1992. So there's a large number of people in the age group looking to get married. The number of births could rise slightly because there are so many people in the age group that can give birth.
But it could be too soon to celebrate just yet. Last year, the total fertility rate, which is defined as the average number of children that are born to a woman in her lifetime, hit a record low of 0.72. In the second quarter of 2024, the total fertility rate came to 0.71, which is the same as in the second quarter of 2023. When comparing the total number of births from January to June this year and last year, the number for this year fell by more than 3,000. The population also saw a natural decline of 8,700 in June, bigger than the figure for June 2023. Natural decline is calculated by subtracting the number of deaths from the number of births, and the country has seen a natural decline in the population since November 2019. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The combined attendance record for the KBO League has been broken yet again, surpassing 9 million for the first time in the league's 42-year history. According to the league on Wednesday, following fixtures on the same day, the 10 KBO League teams saw a total of 9,009,040 fans came out to the ballparks in the 610 games so far in 2024. This is thanks to the attendance for 6 out of 10 teams surpassing 1 million this season. Now, with 20 or so games remaining for each team, the league could see combined attendance surpass 10 million. The previous record for single-season attendance set 7 years ago was broken earlier this month.
Good morning, I'm Walter Lee, and this is The World Now. The Paris 2024 Paralympics is now underway, with the opening ceremony starting at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, local time. About 50,000 people watched the ceremony in the stands of the Place de la Concorde. More than 4,000 athletes with physical, visual and intellectual impairments will compete in 22 sports from Thursday local time until September 8th. Just like the Summer Olympics, the opening ceremony for the Paralympics was, for the first time in history, held outside rather than in a stadium. During the ceremony, fighter planes flew overhead, leaving red, white and blue vapours in the colours of the French national flag before the delegations entered the square. Lucky Love, a French singer who was born with one arm, was joined by performers in wheelchairs when he sang on stage. Then, as the national anthem played, the obelisk lit up in the colours of the French flag. Organisers say more than 2 million of the 2.8 million tickets have been sold for the various Paralympic events. The first medals handed out on Thursday will be in taekwondo, table tennis, swimming and track and cycling. Athletes are grouped by impairment levels to ensure as level a playing field as possible. Berkshire Hathaway, the conglomerate led by investor Warren Buffett, has surpassed $1 trillion in market value. This places Berkshire Hathaway in an exclusive group of just 6 other companies, including Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. It is also the only one of the trillion-dollar group that isn't a big tech company. Buffett, who is just about to turn 94, has been at the helm of Berkshire since 1965. Under his leadership, the company's shares have skyrocketed by over 5.6 million%, an annual growth of 20%. Berkshire Hathaway's vast portfolio includes brands like American Express, Coca-Cola, and Bank of America, along with a significant stake in Apple, despite selling off more than half of its shares this year. Despite donating over half of his shares to charity, Buffett still owns over 14% of the company. His net worth is estimated at $145 billion, making him the 6th richest person in the world, according to Forbes. The second quarter results for tech giant Nvidia have gone above expectations. The company's earnings report showed adjusted earnings of 68 cents per share and $30 billion in revenue. This surpassed analysts' expectations of 64 cents per share earnings and $28.8 billion revenue. Nvidia also projected third quarter revenue of $32.5 billion, which is above analysts' predictions. The company also approved a 50 billion share buyback, but despite the strong numbers, Nvidia's stock dropped 6% following the announcement. The 81st Venice Film Festival kicked off Wednesday local time with a star-studded gala, drawing filmmakers and cinema enthusiasts from across the globe. Hollywood legend Sigourney Weaver, known for her roles in Alien and Avatar, was honored with the Golden Lion Lifetime Achievement Award. Weaver's celebrated career spans 5 decades of critical and commercial success. Following the ceremony, attendees of the festival were treated a premiere screening of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice.
Good morning. Typhoon Shanshan is approaching the island of Kyushu in western Japan, bringing rough weather to the southwest coast of Japan this morning. The typhoon will also indirectly impact parts of Korea's South and East Sea, with high sea watches and a typhoon warning being in place. Also, strong wind advisory has been issued to Busan and nearby areas, as well as Jeju Island this morning. Please double-check your travel schedules in case of any cancellations or delays. Strong easterly winds will bring showers to the east coast and Jeju Island with up to 60 millimeters in the forecast until Friday. Meanwhile, midsummer heat returns to western parts of Korea, with Seoul and Gwangju expected to top out at 34 degrees Celsius this afternoon under sunny skies with very strong UV rays. And Daegu gets up to 31, Busan, Jeju topping out at 32 degrees Celsius. Now, those of us in the capital area need to brace for heat throughout the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching.
진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도, 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기!
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, August 29th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Thursday!
Happy Thursday! And Brooke Prince.
Hello, good morning.
Great to have you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items trending online. The Paris 2024 Paralympic Games kicked off on Wednesday night in the French capital. Following in the footsteps of the Paris Olympics, which ended almost 3 weeks ago, the opening ceremony was held outdoors along the Champs-Élysées Avenue and the nearby Place de la Concorde Square. Para-canoe athlete Choi Yong-bum carried South Korea's flag during the Parade of Nations on behalf of Team Korea's 83 athletes. Over 4,000 athletes from 168 delegations are set to compete across 22 sports. The 17th Summer Paralympic Games will run until September 8th. In entertainment news, Adore, the sub-label of HYBE that manages the popular K-pop girl group NewJeans, has announced a leadership change. CEO Min Hee-jin has been replaced by Chief Human Resources Officer Kim Ju-young. Adore stated that the change was made through legal procedures following a shareholders meeting, adding that Min will remain as the company's internal director, continuing to produce content for NewJeans. However, Min has disputed this decision, claiming it was illegal, unilateral, and made without her consultation regarding her continued role in content production for the group. Finally, a recent social media post by an employee at a dental clinic in Korea has sparked online debate. The post recounts an incident involving a 23-year-old man who visited the clinic on his own. He was fully informed about the cavity treatment and its costs and received the treatment that same day. However, just a few hours later, the clinic received a call from the man's mother angrily demanding, "How could you treat my child without the guardian's permission?" The situation escalated when the mother reported the incident to a local health center. Now, despite this, the clinic successfully resolved the issue using objective documentation. The employee who shared the story expressed disbelief, questioning at what point someone should no longer be considered a child. Online reactions mostly criticized the mother's overprotectiveness, with some asking, is she going to follow him to the army or work too? So here in the studio, I want to ask our panelists, what are your thoughts on this incident?
Well, I think it's a very interesting story.
It is indeed.
And coming from an American perspective, for us, young people typically leave the nest, so to speak, when they turn 18 and they go to college. But in Korea, I'm aware that a lot of young people live with their parents up until they get married.
Right.
So there is kind of a different sense of independence. So at first, when I read the story, I thought, well, maybe this is a cultural difference. And so I didn't want to judge the mother too harshly. And also, I will say, as the daughter of a doctor, I call my dad about every little medical issue that I have. I like to keep him informed because I think you never really stop being a parent. They always worry about you. But it's up to me to inform my dad of those things if I choose to. And so I think in this case, it was also up to the son to tell his mother if he wanted to. And it wasn't the responsibility of the hospital to inform her of one of their adult patients. So that's my take on it. But I'm curious, as Koreans, would you say that this is something normal culturally, or is it out of the norm?
Well, I would say that it's not that normal. Yeah. But I would like to ask Ji too, from a Korean's perspective. What do you think?
No, I agree with Yoo-jin that it's not like the norm. And I also agree with you, Brooke, that children can inform their parents, even though they're adults, about what's going on in their life. And we've actually covered a similar topic on this issue before, helicopter parents. Parents who are overly protective of their adult children. And I think this incident highlights like the fine line between parental care and overprotection. Of course, a parent being concerned about the well-being of their children is understandable.
Yeah, it's natural.
It's very natural. However, at 23 years old, the man is legally an adult and capable of making his own decisions, especially regarding something as routine as dental treatments, I think. And the mother's reaction seems excessive, and it once again shows the importance of allowing young adults to really take responsibility for their own lives. And I think over-involvement by the parents to their adult children can hinder their ability to grow, the ability to become independent and also being self-sufficient. But from another perspective, though, maybe the son paid with his mother's card.
That's why the mother got angry and called the hospital.
Yeah,
understandable.
We can't overlook that. And sometimes the dental hospitals, they do overcharge you for unnecessary treatment. So yeah, it's a different perspective we should take.
So a lot to consider regarding this incident. Hope the son and his mother gets to resolve this issue peacefully. And that was our news feed for this Thursday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today we're going to talk about what's often called the soul food of Koreans. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
South Korea's kimchi export volume reached a record high in the first half of this year. According to the Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation and Korea Customs Service, 23,900 tons of kimchi were shipped overseas, up 4.8% from the same period last year. Exports to the West saw a significant increase, with a 20% rise in the US and a 34% jump in the Netherlands. What's driving this growing global demand for kimchi?
Right, so today we're going to talk about kimchi. Here in Korea, there's even a song called the kimchi song. Can I try the song,
Yes, please. How does it go?
So it goes, kimchi 없이 못 살아, which translates to English, you cannot live without kimchi. And I think that this song and Korea's kimchi culture and the love for kimchi really shows how deeply embedded the dish is in the Korean diet. So let's start off with a very light question. Do you also enjoy kimchi? Can you not live without it?
I can't live without kimchi. That was such a cute little melody.
Sorry to our viewers.
Yes, and it really shows how we really do love kimchi. And if I had to choose between a burger without Coke and ramen without kimchi.
What tough question.
It is a tough question, right? But I would definitely go for the burger without Coke, because kimchi or ramen without kimchi, I can't really imagine. Yes, and as we all know, kimchi is Korea's traditional fermented food. It's made by salting and fermenting vegetables, which are then seasoned with various spices. And the flavor, we've all tried kimchi, right? It's
delicious.
Yes, very delicious. It's quite spicy with a savory kick, and it's a unique Korean dish enjoyed both in South and North Korea. Usually it's not eaten on its own, although Brook does, like a main dish. But here it's served more as a side dish with rice, noodles, and whatnot. And personally, my favorite combination is kimchi with steamed sweet potatoes.
Oh, that's such a unique but delicious, well-known combination in Korea, right?
It is, definitely.
So Ji-hee is a big fan of kimchi. I'm pretty sure Brooke is, because Ji just mentioned that you have kimchi as your main dish, right?
Yes, I love it. And you know, last time I was on, I talked about coffee.
Right.
And now I'm talking about kimchi. So I love this pattern. I love getting to talk about things that I enjoy. And kimchi is one of them. I think of other food as a vehicle for kimchi.
Oh, wow.
So while most people might think of kimchi as a side dish, for me, it is the star of the show. I love it so much. I have it almost every day. And whenever I go to restaurants with my Korean friends, I'm usually the first one to ask for more kimchi.
Really?
I actually run out. And then the staff will come to me and they'll say, are you sure you're okay to eat the kimchi? Is it not too spicy for you? Because I'm a foreigner. And I get this question a lot because typically they assume that foreigners can't handle spicy food as well. And there is a reason for that. My family, for example, cannot eat spicy food very well. So when they came to Korea, I was a little worried about them trying Korean food, but I wanted them to get the experience. And they actually loved kimchi. They did say it was a little spicy, but they really enjoyed the added flavor it gave to other meals. So I think that even if foreigners might not be used to the taste yet, if they just give it a try, I think they'll love it.
Right. So I think that our international viewers who are tuning in right now would be curious and want to know more about kimchi. So for those who might not be familiar with the dish, let's do a quick quiz session on some interesting fun facts about kimchi. So we're back with our O and X sign. Please raise a sign depending on your answer. So our first question is, number one, all kimchi is red. 1, 2, 3. So you guys both raised X. Please explain why.
Well, of course not.
Why?
Because there's also white kimchi, and we've tried it. I ate it last week, actually, in our 회식 or group lunch. Well, long ago, however, there used to be only white kimchi, they say. So the red version is more recent. And we're, of course, more familiar with the red version. And foreigners mostly know kimchi as being red, but there are also different colored kimchi.
So have you tried white kimchi too, Brooke?
I have. I first tried the traditional, well, what I thought was the original red. I thought that came first, but then I started trying other kinds, and I have tried the white kimchi, just like at our last 회식, like Ji-hee mentioned, we had it with duck, and it was so delicious. They went really well together.
Right, so a tip for our viewers, white kimchi pairs great with duck. So let's move on to our second question. Number 2, kimchi can only be made from cabbage. 1, 2, 3. XO? Okay.
Oh, excuse me. Okay. My bad.
I was like, gee.
So can either of you provide an explanation why you chose X?
Well, of course not, once again.
Of course not.
Of course not. Cabbage kimchi is the most commonly known among foreigners, but there are over 300 different kinds of kimchi.
Wow.
Yeah, made of different ingredients such as radish, leek, spring onion, and many more. And they have different seasonings, and they even put different ingredients like raw fish even, or like oysters, depending on the different region of the country. Yeah, so there are a lot more.
Right. So we took the time. We had a small quiz session on some fun, lesser-known facts about kimchi. Now, I want to ask our panelists, are there any other interesting facts about the dish or the culture that you'd like to share?
Oh, yes. There's the kimjang culture, which is the tradition of making kimchi. And did you know that it was recognized as a UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage back in 2013? So it's become a world-renowned cultural asset now. And usually when the cold winds signal the beginning of winter, Koreans typically start preparing kimchi to last throughout the year. And it's usually made in large portions so that they can share it among the family and even neighbors. In the past, I have fond memories myself as well of helping my grandma not make kimchi, but taste.
The best part.
Yeah, she used to make. And enjoying freshly made kimchi with hot rice and boiled pork, or suyuk we call it in Korean.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's just the best. However, these days, you can easily find convenient meal kits as well with salted cabbage and the seasoning mix. So you can make just small portions for yourself.
Well, I had breakfast today, but I'm feeling already hungry now.
Me too.
Thanks to you, T. Well, Brooke, you are relatively new to kimchi and Korea's kimchi culture when compared to me and T. So looking back on when you first came to Korea 8 years ago, is there anything unique about Korea's kimchi culture that kind of drew your attention?
Yeah, I actually had never tried kimchi before I came to Korea, but as soon as I landed, I really wanted to experience all of the Korean food because I am a very adventurous eater. I'm not picky at all, so I was super excited. And the first time I tried kimchi was at a hueshik. We've talked about it earlier in the show. That's a typical gathering amongst coworkers where you eat and drink together and you get to know each other. And so I remember at my first hueshik, they were all kind of looking at me and waiting with bated breath to see how I would handle the kimchi flavor because it's quite strong if you're not used to it. But I loved it immediately. I loved the way it tasted with the meat, and to this day that's one of my favorite combinations. But more than just that, I remember the kimchi being kind of like the centerpiece of the meal. It was something that brought everyone together. And so I have really fond memories of kimchi, and that was also the first time that I got to experience a Korean meal. It's very family style, whereas in America, when you order your food, that's your food. No one else gets to touch it. But in Korea, everyone shares everything. So I have a lot of really nostalgic memories around kimchi, and I think a lot of Koreans have that as well. I don't yet have like a kimchi refrigerator in my home, which a lot of Koreans have, but I do hope that one day that I will learn how to properly make it and store it myself. Maybe you can give me some tips.
Right, and then you can share your experience here on NewsGen.
I would love to.
And the reason why we chose this topic today is because, as you've seen, the VCR kimchi exports during the first half of this year hit a record high. So very briefly, I want to ask our panelists, what do you think is like the one reason why kimchi has become so popular worldwide?
Well, like we've been talking about, the popularity of kimchi is undeniable now, but I don't think it's just because of the savory taste that it has, but because kimchi is also a healthy food.
Right.
It's packed with nutrients, rich in probiotics, and known for its cancer-fighting and immune-boosting properties as well. And kimchi is incredibly versatile as well. It can adapt to local food trends, whether it's gluten-free, vegan, or tailored to regional tastes. And Brooke later on will tell us more about why it's versatile in some other ways as well. But kimchi also became more popular with Hallyu, or the Korean wave, and the integration of it into popular culture really signifies more than just the culinary trend, but also reflects cultural exchange, and it can really become or serve as a conduit for understanding among different cultures and people as well.
Right, because when you see K-dramas or K-movies, the characters they almost always have kimchi, so maybe a lot of K-wave fans want to try kimchi. Now, what are some versatile ways to enjoy kimchi, Brooke?
Right, well, I do think kimchi is so popular because it's so dynamic. You can use it in in so many different ways. Like we mentioned earlier, there are over 300 different kinds of kimchi. You can also use it in a lot of different meals, like as you're seeing on the screen. There's kimchi-jeon, which is a type of pancake.
Right.
There's also kimchi jjigae, which is a type of stew, one of my favorite meals. There are kimchi dumplings, ramen. Oh, this all looks so good. Many different ways that you can enjoy kimchi. But beyond just its taste, kimchi is a symbol of national pride for Korea.
Right.
Whenever I go over to a Korean friend's house, they are very proud to show me their kimchi refrigerator, to have me try their kimchi, because I think every family has a different way of doing it. They pass their recipes down for generations, and so it's something that they're very proud of. And as a foreigner, I'm really excited to be included in that. And I also think that with the Korean wave gaining momentum, there are a lot of foreigners that are wanting to experience Korean's national dish as well.
Right, and talking about the diverse ways we can enjoy kimchi, we also asked our viewers if they've tried kimchi and what foods from their own cultures they think would pair well with it. And here's what 3 of them said. If we look at the comments, Spiritual Success says it goes well after eating any meat or heavy food since it aids digestion, and as a vegetable, it helps settle the stomach if you eat a little too much. Kimchi is basically good with anything except sweets and desserts. Chemo514 says, I think kimchi must be tasted with shrimp pizza. If people can add pineapple on shrimp pizza, then why not kimchi? Wow, I might as well try this recipe. Marilyn Period says, I tried kimchi with Granny Goose tortilla barbecue chips. It's delicious. Very creative ways for our viewers trying to have kimchi by pairing it with foods from their own culture. Now, to find out even more about kimchi and its culture, we're going to invite a kimchi expert to our talks right after this break. Right, so today we're joined by No Ji-yeon, manager of the museum Kimchigan in Seoul. Welcome, Ji-yeon, to the show.
Hello, thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you for joining us. So going right into our first question, could you tell us about the popularity of kimchi overseas?
Interest in kimchi among foreigners has really grown. In fact, 6 out of 10 of our recent guests are from different countries, including Southeast Asia, France, and Russia. When we first moved to Insadong in 2015, about 70% of our visitors were locals and around 30% were foreigners. But after being closed for nearly 2 years during the pandemics, we reopened it in May 2022. And since then, the number of foreign visitors has been steadily increasing. Last year, over 40% of our visitors were from abroad. And this June alone, that number jumped to 60%. The rising global interest in K-food and the health benefits of kimchi have definitely contributed to this trend. Our hands-on kimchi making programs are becoming more and more popular. We even have some participants who have already tried making kimchi before and are eager to learn about different varieties. We also get chefs who come specifically to learn about kimchi, and there's been a noticeable increase in people asking where they can buy kimchi after the experience.
I see. Then how do you think kimchi has managed to captivate so many people around the world? Are there any specific types of kimchi?
I believe it all started with the rise of Hallyu Korean wave, you guys said, which includes K-dramas and K-pop. As Korean celebrities gained more popularity around the world, people started to become more curious about Korean food. The concept of healthiness became a key aspect of Korean cuisine in the eyes of many. Also, when other pandemics like SARS or MERS emerged, the benefits of kimchi were highlighted, which further fueled interest among foreigners in making kimchi themselves and exploring healthy eating habits. As a result, these dishes that use kimchi and foods that pair well with it have also gained popularity. I think that's why She has seen a surge in global interest and recognized as one of world's top 5 healthiest foods. Also, Koreans often assume that foreigners can't handle spicy, but surprisingly, the most popular type among them is actually Berkshire kimchi, the classic red cabbage kimchi made with gochugaru, which is iconic in Korea. Recently, we've also noticed a growing interest in food choices related to environmental concerns, partly due to climate change. For instance, there's an increasing number of people around us who are interested in or practicing veganism. We even get inquiries about vegan options when guests book our experience programs. Although we can't customize every ingredient to individual preference, we do offer vegan-friendly experiences that do not use fish sauce, use locally sourced seasonal ingredients that everyone can enjoy.
So very fun, interesting facts about kimchi. All right, Tion, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, but hope today's discussion here on Newsden helps you learn more about kimchi. Now, Newsden will be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
And Brooke Prince.
Thank you. Gonna go have some kimchi.
Kimchi. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지? 김치?
종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥?